and welcome to the RacingBet racing preview ahead of Cox Plate weekend at Moonee Valley on Friday night and, of course, Saturday. Friday headlined by the Group 1 Manikato Stakes and Saturday, of course, headed by the Cox Plate. I'm your host, Tim Geers, and I'm joined by Trent Crebbin as always. Trent, really good weekend ahead.
Yeah, it is. It's very exciting having the Friday night into the Saturday of the Cox Plate, which is an outstanding field. Chucking the footy grand final at the night, and you've got a big weekend of sport.
We'll get into the Group 1 Manikato Stakes. Now, Trent has provided a runner-by-runner analysis of Manikato on the website, racingbet.com.au. You can find his full speed map, runner-by-runner comments, his selections, and his betting strategy. We're going to get into the race in depth now. Trent, why don't you kick us off with the speed map?
Yeah, so the speed map here, I think Pippi from barrier 1 is going to lead. I don't think there's any doubts about that. I think she's too quick out of the barriers not to. Just around her and behind her is where it becomes tricky. I had Splintex sitting outside her and Bella Vella potentially cast a little bit wide. Hey Doc probably just lead us back, maybe sitting out one back. They've stated with Diamond Effort that they're trying to find a position outside the leader. I didn't have her that far forward, but if she pushes up as well, it's going to be a real log jam kind of for that position out there. I think you've got Dirty Work just tucked in along the rail there. Order of Command just settling midfield. Kementari and Trekking probably just off midfield there as well. Both look to map okay. Liar, I don't think she's really quick enough to beat a few of these. So I think she'll be back near the rail, and Brooklyn Hustle at the end.
Yeah, it looks to be plenty of speed engaged. It's interesting you make mention of Diamond Effort going forward to try and hold that spot outside the leader. I think it makes sense because if they don't, they're going to have to tuck in behind Pippi, who draws barrier 1, and they're probably going to be caught in the coffin there. But that makes it interesting up front because you're going to have Pippi leading, obviously, Diamond Effort trying to hold that spot outside of her. You're going to have the likes of Splintex, Bella Vella coming across, and then Haydock from barrier 6. Interesting to see where he gets to as well. So plenty of speed, I think. Let's go through the main chances of the race. I'll kick us off. It's funny because when I looked at this race, I kind of saw Trekking come up favourite, and I thought, well, that's a good start. We can get him beat at Moonee Valley. But I've actually ended up with Trekking on top. His first up run here in the Moya Stakes behind Pippi was outstanding over a distance short of his best, 1,000 metres. He's much better suited at 1,200 metres. I think he's got Pippi covered. That was on soft ground, so I'm not too worried. The only concern with him is if the track were to be in the heavy range. He's had 3 starts on heavy for no placing. So if it gets particularly wet, then I'd start to be worried. Look, he comes off a run in the Everest last weekend where he ran 4th, beaten 3 lengths by Classique Legend. Obviously, that's the superior sprinting form line in Australia at the moment. And he comes here on the 1 week backup. Now, some people may say this is an afterthought and that, he's 1 week backup, he has to travel. But he's done that well in the past. He won the Scalacci Stakes last year and then ran in the Everest a week later on the quick backup and ran 3rd, beaten the length. So he is a horse that has had success in the past on the 1 week backup. So I'm not too worried about that. And I just think the speed of this race, we saw him ridden a bit more aggressively in the Everest last weekend, but I don't think we'll see him ridden that aggressively tonight. Barrier 7 should just allow him to tuck in behind the speed here and allow him to storm home down the middle of the track, I think. So I've got him as the one to beat, but if you are betting, I would suggest waiting till closer to the race because I think we'll get a better price closer to jump time. The other horse I'm keen to back is number 6, Dirty Work at $6.50 or $7 now. I think he's probably the value option in the race. He comes off a win in the Scalacci Stakes last start. I thought the win was better than it looked. He settled last in the small field, had to make a looping run and pick up a decent field. He's got a really short, sharp sprint, this horse. We've heard the stable and the jockeys who have ridden him talk about how he's just got a really electric turn of foot, but it only goes for a couple of 100 metres. So I think barrier 3 probably suits him here because he'll be able to tuck in just behind the speed that I've just alluded to. And I think he's obviously going to need a little bit of luck, but if that gap comes, he's probably going to be suited at Moonee Valley where he can just pierce that gap, accelerate through, and he doesn't have to maintain a long sprint. The straight at Moonee Valley is only a couple of 100 metres, so if the gap comes, he'll be able to shoot through it and won't have to maintain it too long. So I think, look, his form previous to that, he was 1.4 lengths off Classique Legend. We know how that form's worked out. Before that, he ran 3rd to G-Tra and Nature Strip. So he brings elite level form. He comes off a good win, drawn well in barrier 3. And I know he's had three 3 starts at this distance for no placings and a couple of starts here at Moonee Valley for no placings. But I think he's a much better horse this preparation. And towards the end of last prep, we started to see that. So, yep, that's the way I've gone. I'm with Trekking and Dirty Work. Trent, you're banking on the fact that this is going to be a very wet track, I think, and you've got a few you're keen to play at good odds.
Yeah, I think if we are kind of getting towards that heavy range, kind of worse than a soft 6 and that soft 7 kind of range, I think Diamond Effort's going to be quite hard to beat here. I think her record on wet ground is very good. I thought she ran really well in the Scalacci last start, only a nose off Dirty Work, kind of towed him into the race there, went down fighting, and that was on a good track over 1,100 meters. I think 1,200 meters, she's 4 from 8 at the 1,200 meters. Dirty Work, Pike came off and said that he'd be better suited at 1,200, but he hasn't exactly shown that yet. And the big tick is the wet ground for her. She's 1 from 1 on heavy, 1 twice on soft ground as well. So I think if the rain does come, she's going to be very well suited. And I think you can see that with her early backing. She was around $11. When I posted my preview, she's now into about $7.50 chance with that rain predicted. So I think she's going to be right in the finish there. The other one, if it is wet, is number 4, Splintex. I think he's going to be a big player if the rain does come at big odds. You look through his form, he's 2 from 2 on heavy ground, including a 3.3 length win on a heavy ground over 1,200 meters. And then he also has a win in the Arrowfield 3-year-old sprint over Flit on heavy ground. So I think if the rain does come and we're on heavy ground, and he can just get to that kind of outside lead position first, I think he's going to be right in the finish. He was only beaten a length by Dirty Work last start on a good track in the Scalacci, and I think he's just the wrong price here at around that $26 mark.
And he's your best value of the night. Probably worth mentioning that your best value of the night is Splintex.
Yeah, I think he's just the wrong price if that rain does come at $26. He's also had a little bit of backing in from $34 as well with that rain predicted again. So I think, yeah, he is my best value bet of the night. I think he's going to be right in the finish. And the other one I just want to quickly mention is number 2, Haydock. He's been a drifter probably because of that rain as well. He doesn't really have much form on soft ground, but I think he's been set for this race. He's going to be peaking here. He loves the track and distance. And I think if he does handle the soft ground, or if we don't get the rain, he's going to be right in the finish as well. But Diamond Effort on top for me, and I think Splintex is the value.
What are your thoughts on Pippi here? Drawn barrier 1. She obviously looks the main leader in the race, or the obvious leader in the race. Good win in the Moya first up. $6 tonight.
Yeah, I was happy enough to take her on. I think the obvious knock is up to 1,200 meters. I know she's won twice at 1,200 meters, but they were in inferior races here. I think she's going to cop a lot of pressure from those horses drawn out wide. I think she's going to be a little bit soft late. You saw Trekking was making up a lot of ground behind her in the Moya. I think Diamond Effort was incredibly unlucky in that Moya race as well, only beaten a couple of lengths. So I think there's plenty to suggest that a few of these will turn the tables. And I thought $6 was short enough.
Okay, unit betting strategy or $100 betting strategy for the Manikato?
Yeah, units. I've gotten 2 units on Diamond Effort there and half a unit Splintex. I've also got half a unit on Haydock, but I think kind of late in the betting is when you're going to be getting the best price about him.
Yep, and for me, I'd be outlaying something like 1.5 units on Trekking, late in betting, and half a unit on Dirty Work at $7. Okay, we'll leave the Manikato there, and we'll get into tomorrow's racing at Moonee Valley on the quick backup, of course, Cox Plate Day, none better. We'll quickly go through our best bets before we get into, obviously, the feature race being the Cox Plate. Now, me and Trent both have the same best bet on the program, so I think this is the first time ever. I mean, granted, we haven't done Melbourne or Sydney together before, but it's not often we necessarily, our thoughts align and we agree on everything. So this is a good sign for punters. Our best bet comes up in race number 6, horse number 6, Young Werther at $2.30. Trent, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I think Young Werther is going to be exceptionally hard to beat here in the Moonee Valley Vars. He's only had 2 career starts. The first one was a very good win. The second one, he was very unlucky. A bit of pilot area by Damien Oliver, and also just a bit of greenness, I think, cost him kind of having a tendency to lay in. Once he got clear and balanced up, he ran the fastest last 200 meters of the race behind Quay, who he meets here again. Started $2.60 on that occasion. I think he's been back from about that price into around $2.30 now. And I'm pretty confident with that race experience and with a better run in transit that he turns the tables here. I think he's going to be better suited up to 2,000 meters. He gets the blinkers on. So I think, that should focus and sharpen him up a little bit.
Winkers, not blinkers.
sorry, Winkers on. I think that's probably even better at this stage. Probably not as extreme. Draws barrier 4. I think he should be able to tuck just behind the speed, and with even luck, I think he's going to be very, very hard to beat on his way to the Derby.
Yep, and I wouldn't be too worried about the wet ground with him either. I think you've nailed everything there. The only other one in the race I think is worth mentioning is horse number 7, Johnny Get Angry at $23. If I wasn't making Young Werther my best bet of the day here, I'd be making Johnny Get Angry my best value bet of the day. I think $23 is over the odds. His run last start was good behind Quay Quay and Young Werther in the same race. The superimpose at Flemington, I think the step up in distance helps him. Interesting to see where he gets from the barrier draw, probably somewhere out the back, but I think he's, a natural stayer, and he was hitting the line hard last start. And I think he can outrun his odds of $23 here. So hopefully we get that one nailed on, because as I said, me and Trent, we don't often line up our thoughts together. So we both landed on Young Werther as our best bet tomorrow, Cox Plate Day. Best value bets on tomorrow's card. We'll start with you, Trent. Yours comes up in race number 4, horse number 3, Miss In Between.
Yeah, I found it a bit tough to label kind of a best value bet of the day. I agree with you. Johnny Get Angry is probably over the odds there. I think he'll be better suited in the Derby at Flemington, where he can balance up a bit better. But in race number 4, I've gone with horse number 3, Miss In Between. I just think she's probably the wrong odds here at around $13. I think the two favourites probably going to be hard to beat, but they both come out of 1,000 guineas. That's horse number 1, Thermosphere, horse number 2, Ecumenical. I just think that maybe this is a bit of an afterthought with those two fillies. That was a fairly strongly run race. Ecumenical sat wide, did a power of work and ran very well. Thermosphere had a better run, probably just faded a little bit. I think maybe Thermosphere might have come to the end of her prep and they're kind of just pressing on, just kind of trying to get one more run out of her. Ecumenical probably hard to beat again, but she did start about $31 in that race. I'm just not really keen to take the short odds about her. So I thought Miss In Between, number 3, could run really well here at $13. She raced last Wednesday at Caulfield, led the field. She got run down by Embolism, and third in that race was Confrontational. Now, Confrontational ran the quick backup at the Geelong Classic and won over 2,200 metres for the stayers. I think that's probably good form. Embolism's a pretty handy horse as well. I think Miss In Between maps really well here from barrier 4. She can probably lead quite comfortably. I don't think there'll be any issues on wet ground. She ran second to a horse called Anavisto, who was kind of around that Guineas prelude form as well on a soft 7 first up. So I think she's going to be suited here. I think she's probably just over the odds with a couple of knocks on the favourites here in the market.
We'll move on to my best value of the day. My best value comes up in race number 8. It's horse number 7, Sound. This race being the Group 2 Moonee Valley Gold Cup. Just think, we're not getting a huge price about this horse. There's about $6.50, maybe $7.50 lurking around there. But I think he's a terrific each-way chance, and I'm sure he'll be somewhere thereabouts in the finish. He's never won since coming to Australia, this horse, but he has placed in 4 of his last 5 starts, including his last 2. Last start, he ran second in the Group 3 Bart Cummings at Flemington. The winner of that race was Persan. Steel Prince is back in third. Of course, we saw Steel Prince come out of that race and win the Geelong Cup on Wednesday, so the form is obviously stacking up. And I think this horse just draws to get a lovely run from barrier 2. Should sit somewhere in midfield. Mark Zara takes over the ride. Has won on soft ground previously. 2,500 metres we know is no issue whatsoever. I do concede the horse to beat is Shared Ambition, but Shared Ambition's had enough chances with me, and $3.90 is short enough for him. And I just thought $6.50, $7.50 about Sound was a better way to go each way, kind of 1 by 3 there. Looks fairly bomb-proof in a race like this. So I'm hoping that he can crack it for his first win since moving to our shores. Cox Plate time, the main race of the day. Trent. Very, very strong field and a very even field. Wide open betting market. Fascinating race for this year's Cox Plate.
Yeah, it is. It's a really high quality race. We've got, in my opinion, 2 stars of the Australian turf in Arcadia Queen and Russian Camelot. We've got a couple of really good internationals, Armory, Sir Dragonet coming over. And, the horses around them are no slouches either. You've got multiple Group 1 winners. Humidor's run a nose second to Winks in a Cox Plate. It's stacked field of quality here. And I think it is a really tough race to assess as well, especially with the predicted rain as well. Did you have a kind of a way the speed map would pan out for the Cox Plate?
Yeah, well, I do, but I don't. I think there's a lot of unknowns with this speed map. None more so than what does Russian Camelot do? Drawn barrier 15. There's a lot of conjecture about whether he goes forward or goes back. Personally, I think he's going to go forward. So the way I've got the race mapped is something along the lines of this. Grand Slam, the 3-year-old, I don't think there's any doubt they'll push forward and lead with him. I've got Russian Camelot coming across to sit outside him from barrier 15, much like he did in his Underwood Stakes victory. I've got Colding going forward from barrier 10, probably pushing up from barrier 2 to sit on the speed. Buckhurst is an interesting one. Drawn barrier 11, of course, he gains a run with the scratching of Magic Wand. We assume that he will probably push forward somewhere. Fierce Impact is another that will probably look to settle much further forward than what he did last start in Sydney. Armory should settle somewhere around midfield. Master of Wine likely to hold a position 3 back defence from barrier 1. Aspetar somewhere behind him, barrier 3. Mugger 2 probably slots in worse than midfield, along with Arcadia Queen from barrier 8. We saw her ridden much colder last start when she won over Russian Camelot. I think we'll see her ridden quietly again, albeit I don't think we'll see her running last. Sir Dragonet, his last start against Magical, he settled out the back, and I think from barrier 7 he'll be worse than midfield, which leaves Humidor going back from barrier 14 and Natoya rounding out the field from barrier 13. She looks the designated back marker in the race. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think that's probably about right. I think Russian Camelot probably goes back. I don't really know what to do with him. You're right, it's a tricky one, but I thought they would probably go back, just with plenty of pace in the race. I think Grand Slam's an obvious leader, and I think Buckhurst from out wide will definitely go forward now. He's got a spot. So I thought they'd kind of drift back and try and find a spot just midfield or just worse than midfield. But I agree, it could go either way there. Getting into selections, who do you have on top in the race?
That's a good question. Look, I don't know. To be very honest with you, I'm not sure. But at this stage, I'll be leaving all of my betting for this race late. I think a lot is going to depend on how wet the track is, how the track's playing. Because, for example, if the inside's completely off, then it's going to change the way this race is running. If the inside's on, or it plays as if it did last start at Moonee Valley last time it rained at Moonee Valley, where you need to be leading, obviously it completely changes the complexion of the race. I think I'm going to end up with Russian Camelot on top, though. The wet ground, I'm sure, will suit him. I think that they will go forward. As I've said, I think they'll go forward and sit outside the leader. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them really try and make this a staying test. We know he can run 2,500 metres strong. It was interesting to hear Danny O'Brien last start say that maybe he's looking for a step up in distance now. So we know he can handle a high-pressure race. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him taking off, 800 metres from home and really trying to string this field out and make them catch him and use his staying prowess to his advantage. So I think he goes on top. Arcadia Queen, like, I love her, you love her. I'm not a huge subscriber to the fact that she doesn't handle the wet ground. Her only 2 starts on soft ground were first up in the PB Lawrence Stakes, where I thought her run was very good. First up from a very long spell, coming back from injury, I thought she was sound. And then in the Underwood Stakes 2 starts ago, where she still had the bar plates on, she may have ended up in the worst part of the track. So she's had excuses, to my mind, in both starts on wet ground. She's a Piero mare. Piero handled the wet fine. So I'm not going to be in the camp of saying the wetter it is, the worse her chances become. I think she's a very, very good mare. And bar plates off once again. If she turns up in the same form as last start, look out. If she repeats her last start performance, I'm not sure there's anything in this field that can beat her. I think the one that's really over the odds is Fierce Impact at $31. I think that's a ridiculous price when you consider, the likes of Colding are $14 and Russian Camelot's $4.60 or $5. Like, how is Fierce Impact $31? Granted, he has a wide drawing barrier 12. The speed map looks a bit sticky, but he was given no mathematical chance of winning that race last start in Sydney. 2 starts ago, he beat Russian Camelot. Yes, Russian Camelot sat wide throughout on that occasion, but Fierce Impact still beat him. Goes fine on soft ground and just continues to turn up and run well. So I think $31 is way over the odds compared to some of the other runners in this race. Like, explain to me how Fierce Impact is $31 and Mugger 2 is $21, coming out of, a terrible Metropolitan that he really should have won. Interested to get your thoughts on some of these international runners. We've got the likes of Aspetar, Sir Dragonet, Armory, And, of course, we've seen Buckhurst in the Caulfield Cup. Armory, there was some concern that he was presenting with lameness yesterday. He's been past fit to run. Obviously, Magic Wonder's been scratched. How do you assess him?
Yeah, he's a tricky one. I think he's the obvious leader of the internationals. I was watching his replays again just this morning. He has got a very good turn of foot. I saw 2 starts ago in a Group 3 in Ireland at the Curragh. He had no right to win that race. He was boxed up for all of the straight. He didn't get out until about 100 metres. He's let about 3 lengths to make up, and he showed a very good turn of foot to get over the top there. So I think if it is kind of, they don't go crazy hard out in front and it is a bit more of an even tempo, I think he or Arcadia Queen has the best turn of foot in the race. Potentially, even Armory has a better turn of foot than her. A very wet deck would be a bit of an issue. I know he's got 2 wins on soft ground, but they were quite a while ago in his 3-year-old days, even 2-year-old days, I believe. And his 1 start on heavy ground, you'll see he has a second placing. That is not a good sign. He ran 30. It was a 2-horse field, and he ran 30 lengths second. So a very heavy deck would be a bit of a worry for him. But I think he's an obvious chance. I thought Sir Dragonet was probably the one. If they do go quite hard and Russian Camelot takes off and makes it quite a strong staying test, I think he's probably the one that's going to be suited. His form, he has form over 2,400 meters. He ran second to Magical last start, which is obviously very good form. Started $1.90 against Buckhurst when they met. Now Buckhurst just got an easy lead there, and Sir Dragonet didn't have that turn of foot to get over the top of him in a 3-horse field. But if it is a strongly run race, I think Sir Dragonet is going to be very suited, and heavy ground will be no issue for him. So I think out of the internationals, I think Sir Dragonet is probably the one that I could find as value.
It's interesting you bring up that Magical form line, because I was looking through this form before thinking, how good is this Magical form line, the Gayath form? But then you tie these runners in, like you've just alluded to. Sir Dragonet ran second to Buckhurst, who then came out in the Caulfield Cup and did absolutely zilch. So on the one hand, you've got this form line behind Magical, who's obviously one of the better horses in the world, and it looks fantastic. But then you line that up through Sir Dragonet running second to Buckhurst, and then you see what Buckhurst did in the Caulfield Cup, and suddenly the European form doesn't look so crash hot. So I found it a little bit tough to kind of line up.
I think Buckhurst, in hindsight, I think will be better suited back to the 2,000 meters. I know he didn't really. He had 1 run in Ireland over the 2,400, which he ran okay in with a big weight, but I don't think he really saw out the 1.5 miles. And I think in the Caulfield Cup, he was a bit disappointing, but I think he was just out on his feet late. He was going bumper cars. He was going sideways in the straight. I think he was just under pressure. And I think back to 2,000 meters is probably going to suit him, but still not sure about him. I think probably Sir Dragonet is the one that will handle the ground better as well. So I think he's probably the one there. I agree with you. Russian Camelot is probably going on top for me at this stage with that wet track experience. I don't know if it'll matter if they go forward or back. I think he's probably just as effective from either. Obviously, mathematically going forward generally wins you more races, but we saw what he did in a South Australian derby when sitting back and wide, that he can still make that long run. I heard a lot of people talking out of the Caulfield Stakes as well, which was a sit and sprint, and Arcadia Queen just had the best turn of foot, that if it's a strongly run race, Russian Camelot's instantly going to be much better suited than her. Again, I don't really subscribe to that theory as much as some other people are. We saw what Arcadia Queen did, albeit as a 3-year-old in the Kingston Town a long time ago, but that was a brutally run race, and she was able to sprint very quickly off of that. I know it was, with 50.5 kilos on her back, but I just don't think that a strongly run race is going to be really disadvantaged to her. I am a little bit more worried about the wet ground, but again, it is a bit inconclusive for her. My head says Russian Camelot. My heart says Arcadia Queen. I'm actually on both in futures, so I wouldn't be too fussed to either one, to be honest.
So
I will be cheering Arcadia Queen.
We probably should have just done a runner-by-runner thing here instead of just mixing and matching. But anyway, I'll get your thoughts on a couple of others here, because there's a couple that are kind of grade me up a little bit. We'll start with the top one, Colding. What do we do with him? Last preparation, his Melbourne form was absolutely dreadful. And then they brought him back to Sydney. They said, no, he's a different horse going the Sydney way of going. He just doesn't go in Melbourne. But here he is, lining up on the Cox Plate, having won back-to-back races. He ticked the 2,000 metre box last start. Can he run well here?
I thought he was very short at $14. Like you said, Fierce Impact had no hope running behind him. Colding got an absolute perfect run there. Got a real sit and sprint 2,000 metres. So I don't really think it's a big test of ability to run 2,000 meters.
Mm.
His Melbourne form is obviously very suspect. He did work quite well at the Valley. I think it was on Tuesday morning at the breakfast with the best that I watched. So I think maybe he might be getting around the Valley okay, but I just thought he was well enough found at $14. And I agree that out of that race, Fierce Impact was the value out of the two, but I was happy enough to be against both, really.
Yeah. Okay, what about Probabile? Coming off a win in the Epsom Handicap, she's had 3 starts this preparation, beaten ahead first up when she was outstanding, and then back-to-back wins in the Bill Ritchie and the Epsom. She probably doesn't want a really heavy track, but it's pretty hard to knock her. Like, she's absolutely flying this preparation. She's had 8 starts on soft ground for 3 wins in 4 seconds.
I thought she was the one that was real unders in the race. I think a lot of people kind of making a case for her, having her on top. I thought she was very short at kind of $9. I don't think she should be single figures at all. Like, yeah, she's in form and she's racing well, but you know, what was the horse she was beating? Like Riadini, she beat by a length and a half or whatever in the Epsom. I know they went out very quickly, and she ran well in that, and she is in good form. But I just don't think she's really good enough. Her one run at 2,000 meters, she ran second to Shout the Bar. You know, what price would that horse be here? I just don't think she's actually good enough to win a Cox Plate. So I think, yeah, she's well short enough at $9. She does map very well there from barrier 2 though. So I think she, you know, she'll get every chance, but I thought she was very short.
Okay, and a lot of people talking about this 3-year-old colt, Grand Slam, who, of course, has just got the 1 win to his name, which came in a benchmark 66 in Adelaide. 2 starts ago, beaten in a benchmark 64 at Flemington, and then came out and ran 3rd in the Caulfield Guineas behind Ole Kirk. How do we see him going here? 49.5 kilos on his back, and we suspect he will lead.
Yeah, well, it has been a recipe for success for the 3-year-olds in the Cox Plate, especially when they're able to lead and use that light weight. Yeah, Caulfield Guineas place getters, you know, had Seamus Award coming out of that race a few years ago as a maiden. Look, he's a real tough one to assess. You know, I don't think he's one of the leading 3-year-olds really. I know he did run well in that Caulfield Guineas, but you know, he was out on his feet late. He was really starting to fade. You know, a much faster run, 2,000 meters with, you know, some of the world's best horses breathing down his neck. I think he's probably going to be feeling the pinch late, and I was happy enough to take him on, but I can see the angle that people are taking there.
Okay, selections in the Cox Plate. For me, I've got Russian Camelot on top at the moment. Again, all this depends on how the track's playing and what it's like, you know, race 9 tomorrow. Russian Camelot on top, very, very scared of Arcadia Queen. Will not be losing on Arcadia Queen. In fact, I'll probably be winning on her. The best of the internationals is probably Armory, but I'm not certain. I'm not convinced about the internationals here. And I think the blowout chance at odds is Fierce Impact at $31 as my phone starts to talk to me. How are you seeing this race? What are your selections?
Yeah, I'm pretty similar. I think I've got Russian Camelot on top. I think he's going to be the one that's going to be really well supported. So I think if you like him, I think you probably want to be backing him now. I don't think he'll get out much past $5. I think he'll start closer to $4, maybe even below. Arcadia Queen obviously is a big danger. If it is where I think you might get closer to $7, $8, and I think you could definitely
even more. I reckon I'd be
well.
I'd be backing Arcadia Queen late. Like, she's already been $5 out to $6.50 in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting close to $10, like that's just has to become a play for you. She's too good a horse, even if there's quite slight couple of queries on a wet track. I think Sir Dragonet is probably one of the internationals that I could make a case for and have something small on as well. So that'd be the 3 for me. Terrified of Armory, just a couple of issues going into the race, and yeah, like you said, probably not sold on a wet track with him either.
He's just such a difficult horse to line up. Like, the stable, they've come out and said, yeah, he's presented lame. And then the stable come out and say he's in better form. He's a better horse and he's in better form than Adelaide was when Adelaide came and won the Cox Plate. Just don't know what to do with him. But anyway, I think Russian Camelot is your most likely winner. And I hope Arcadia Queen wins because I'll be at Ascot tomorrow and the grandstand will dead set come apart if she wins. Believe you me, they won't have enough beer in the bar if Arcadia Queen wins.
We'll be cheering home.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be cheering her home. Yeah, she's your number 1 girlfriend, I reckon.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on Moonee Valley tonight or tomorrow?
No, we'll just have to wait and see what the rain does, what the track does, and I think it should be a great 2 days of racing, and we'll be cheering the Queen home in the Cox Plate.
Beautiful. Now, Joshua Reed's going to take care of Sydney this weekend. He's got a race-by-race preview for Randwick. I'm going to do the Valley tonight, race-by-race, and we're going to mix it up a little bit. So I'm going to do the Valley. Trent's going to take care of the Manikato, and then Trent's going to do the Valley, and I'm the Valley tomorrow, and I'm going to take care of the runner-by-runner preview of the Cox Plate. So we're going to share the load a little bit. You can find everything on racingbet.com.au. It's all happening there. The new website's up and running. We've had a huge first week. The action's coming thick and fast, and so are the selections and the tips from our team. So make sure you head to racingbet.com.au, and good luck this Cox Plate weekend.